Hello, this is Nathan Beverly, and welcome to Call for Salt. I am back doing a video here on cell phone because I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my software for my video production uh, for YouTube has expired, and I'm working on getting that back. And we're moving right now, so we're going through a really busy times. You may see a few more of these cell phone uh, productions where I'm waving things all over the place. Hopefully, I can keep this steady. But I wanted to address something that has come from Big Eva, Big evangelicalism, that I feel like really is important, and we need to respond to as Christians. For those of us who are Trump supporters and who voted for Trump and supported him, this is important, and this is important for the church. We are at a very divisive point right now. Christians are leaving churches in large numbers because of politics, because of I want to say that I don't say that in the dirty sense of the word, but I mean the political implications of what's going on in this country and how it's not being addressed in the right way. And so I want to talk about some of these things. There was an article that was written that I'm going to be addressing that is written by a well-known evangelical conservative theologian and writer by the name of David French. Now I heard a little bit. I knew a little bit about David French before. How he is one of these never Trump Republicans who wrote. He's the senior editor. He was the senior editor of the National Review. He is now the for a number of years, and he's a prolific writer against Trump supporters, and such things. And now he is the a senior writer with the Dispatch, and he wrote an article that was brought to my attention by the Capstone Report. Capstone Report wrote a very important, a very good article responding to this. Their article is written, I believe it was July 24th. I'm going to pull it up right here and I'll just read it to you. It's entitled, the Capstone Report entitled it David French's Political Theology Weighed and Found Wanting. And that's very accurate in my view. Um, they responded to his article on the same day that he wrote his article. And his article is what I want to address and respond to because it cries out for a response. His title of this article was "There is no remaining Christian case for Trump," and really what I want to respond to is, and we already know that he's believed this for a long time. There's no remaining Christian case for Trump before. He's always believed that, but what he says next, the subtitle is really what hits a nerve, and it should hit a nerve with all of us uh, conservative Trump supporters that are in the pews. And this his subtitle is this: Trump discipled the church more than the church discipled Trump. And this is absolutely this hits a nerve because we all know that we're supposed to be discipled by our churches, right? We all know that Christian leaders and pastors are the ones that we're supposed to be discipled and learning from. The trouble is, pastors and conservative leaders are not discipling on these issues. When it comes to the political realm, they prefer to be silent. When it comes to the political sphere, apparently discipleship should be relegated to some abstract principles that are brought up, never connecting the dots back to the political sphere or the culture, or they'll talk about how abortion is wrong on Sanctity of Life Sunday, or when they finally get to Romans 1, when they're teaching through the Bible, they'll speak against homosexuality, but they won't connect it and apply it to the day what we're dealing with right now, and speak to those issues with courage, and speak to what how we should be voting as Christians, why it's important. They don't want to do that. They're not discipling. It's outside that sphere. So Christians, those in the pew, are taking some of our we've learned something. I'll be honest. In a sense, there's some truth to this. We've learned something from Donald Trump. Donald Trump handed us something. He handed us something very important, um, that I think a lot of Christians are waking up to and realizing we need this. And it's a diamond in the rough. This diamond in the rough is the importance of having courage and standing up and speaking for what is right. We see evil like we've never seen in this country advancing. We see the radical left um, having an assault against God, against Christianity, not just Christianity, but against the innocent in general. They're, abusing the rights of unborn children, abusing the rights, abusing people that come over the border that are sold into sex slavery, abusing, allowing abuse through the pouring of drugs, hard drugs from the borders because they were for open borders. Um, just you know, endangering our country through people on the terrorist watch list getting through. They would rather have that. They would rather have that so that they can sound like they're the compassionate ones by letting everybody in, by taking care of the immigrant, quote unquote. We have all of these examples, but we have learned this from Trump that it's okay to fight. It's okay to get strong. Now, there's a lot that we can clean off of that diamond. There's a lot of the side of Trump that's confrontational, his character that wants to name calls and mocks. We can continue to criticize those things. And a lot of us that even go to his rallies will criticize those things. But yet we'll take the courage on the other side that stands against evil and appropriately fights and has a strong response. A strong response is needed. When he said that the media is the enemy of the people, that is absolutely something that needed to be said. Christians, Christian elites, many of them criticize Trump for statements like that, for having that kind of, you know, confrontational attitude towards those on the quote unquote other side, the left. We need to all just unify and get along, and we can find common ground, and to be of a good testimony is we just need to have always a gentle and quiet spirit, and just all of this. No, sometimes true love and compassion responds in a strong way. It calls for it when evil is before us and shakes its fist in the face of the innocent, in the face of God, if in the face of and abuses people, we need to have a strong response. And compassion compels people like me to have courage and to strongly respond to those things. That part of Trump we learned from. That's a diamond in the rough. We have to be willing to fight. A lot of Republicans, politicians didn't have the guts to before. They didn't have the spine. The days of the Bush era, the Bush, letting the media walk all over you and being quiet and not responding and letting them win a lot of battles just because their voice is the only one out there, the only one that fights. Those days are over. They're over. And Trump taught us that. Trump brought that to the table in my view, rather than weakening the Republican Party, weakening the conservative movement, he strengthened it. He strengthened it. There's a number of people on the conservative movement that are fighting against that. But I think more and more they're going to drop away. They're either going to drop away or they're going to be convinced that this is the way we need to be. They're either going to drop away because they're truly at heart they're liberals. They'd rather compromise on the things that really matter. They'd rather compromise, or they will realize that this is about good and evil. This is a grand battle between good and evil, and God has given us this country to be salt and light. We all know this. I think the reason why so many people in the pews have accepted Trump and started to be concerned about their pastors and their leaders not speaking up is because the things in the Word of God that we've always known are true, and they're coming back to the fore. They're coming back. We know these things. Trump was reminding us that of these things. First, we should contend for the faith. The book of Jude talks about contending for the faith. Things like the radical left, social justice, are absolutely an assault against the faith. They're an assault against God of Christianity. And we know this. We see this. We don't just see this in the culture outside. We see this coming into the church. We see this through a number of different means and through a number of different big name evangelicals, the Gospel Coalition, who basically argue and support and have supported illegal immigration like it's not that bad. They've criticized Trump for wanting to have a wall. They've criticized Trump for wanting to protect America. Um, and there's other voices that have raised up this Black Lives Matter mentality that is, you know, bring actual racial divide through highlighting some of the same racial problems that are not, a lot of times, they're not even there, and making a big issue of these things. These things have always been there, and we need these are content. We need to contend for the faith because they're not just outside the church; they're in the church. Um, we also know that we're supposed to be salt and light, and part of being salt is preserving the righteous standards of God, His law in society. We are not just given a regular nation, a normal nation that's typically out there that the people don't have much of a say. We were given by God a nation where we have a voice. We have a way to be that salt and light in the public realm, not just in the private realm. And so we are called to do that. We have a responsibility to do that. We have a responsibility to be the light, to expose the evil so that God's true way can be lifted up. And that takes courage. Sometimes that takes confrontation. And we are learning that. We know that inherently, we know that deep down inside. What about Proverbs 24:11 that says, deliver those who are being led away to death? We've known that. Abortion has been the number one issue for evangelicals ever since Roe v. Wade. And we know that, and we voted what we believed. We voted for a president that wasn't perfect, that was far from perfect, but he promised that he would put pro-life justices on the Supreme Court. In a debate with Hillary before the actual election, he even said that it's automatically going to happen. I'm going to put pro-life justices on the Supreme Court, not just conservatives, but pro-life justices, and it's automatic. They're automatically going to overturn Roe v. Wade. He made that statement, and he said it's not okay with me. Abortion is not okay with me. A late term. He was talking about late term abortion in that particular clip, but he said it's not okay with me. It might be okay with Hillary. It might be okay with a lot of people, but it's not okay with me. And I'm going to do something about it. He had the courage to do that where many presidents didn't. They appointed squishy people like John Roberts. They appointed people that were not absolutely going to overturn Roe v. Wade. Trump delivered on his promises, and we voted for him without the help of never Trumpers. If never Trumpers had their way, Hillary Clinton would be president, Roe v. Wade would be far from being overturned, and we would be living in a very different country. And evil would have progressed a whole lot more. We need to be salt and light, and we know that. We know that we need to stand for what's right. Trump reminded us of that. Our pastors are not doing that. They're being silent. So my next point is, where are you, pastors? That's my question. Where are you, pastors? Why are you silent? Why is politics such a taboo issue in the church when we are facing evil like we are today? And I know a lot of pastors. I've talked to a lot of pastors about this, and a lot of them will respond, "We don't want to bring disunity to the church." Why not? I mean, if we're unifying, if it's about the truth, why is division always bad? If you're trying to disciple them and you're doing it right, my thing is, do it right. Go to the Word of God. You don't have to be confrontational the way you do it, but you have to say, this is what the Word of God says. Here's the left, here's the right. The left is completely anti-God. We ought not have anything to do with that. We ought not have anything to do with voting Democrat. Um, and and here it is. Here's the conservative principles. This is what the Word of God says against those. Conservative principles are 90 some percent are going to be biblical. And here's why. And lay it out for your people and say, look, if you're not on board with this, if you can't see this or you don't want to see this, maybe this church is not for you. And if those people cannot be discipled and will not be teachable to hear it from their own church leaders with the Word of God presented before them, then it's better that they leave. It's healthier for the church instead of them continually spreading their false philosophies and their false the spirit of this world that they're getting from the world and from quite frankly, a lot of the Christian publications and evangelical elites and gospel coalitions of the world that they're getting their discipleship from. They're not getting it from their pastors because the pastors, for the most part, are silent. They're getting it from other Christian sources that are compromising with the left. They're compromising the truth. They're saying it's okay to vote Democrat. They're saying, they're making moral equivalencies between the two parties, between the two conservatives and liberals. There's a lot of good things on both sides. We can understand, you vote your conscience, all of these things. You know, no, they're not morally equivalent. We know that. Inside we know that. And so pastors need to have a spine. Pastors, where are you? Pastors, I love you. I look up to you. I've always submitted. But pastors, I'm telling you right now, you're losing us. You're losing us. I had to leave my own previous church because of this. The church leadership would not address the election the week before. They would not say, we need to pray. This is a very important election. We need to pray, even in general, for godly leaders. Pray that and make sure that this is on our hearts and minds, that we're voting the right way. Nothing like that, because they didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to cause disunity. What else could be the problem? I mean, if it's not about disunity, is it the money? Are you afraid of losing people and therefore losing salary? I don't want to judge your heart. I would like to think, I would like to believe, and I'm going to believe until I hear otherwise, that pastors truly want the unity of the church, and it's not about the money, and that's the main reason. But those are consequences that will happen if pastors don't. If pastors stand up and speak the truth, and it's okay. Trust God. Trust God. Um, the other final point I want to say is that I want to ask this question: are you somebody that is quote unquote political pacifist, and you don't think we should speak about politics from the pulpit? Are you or in our or are you a political purist like David French, that believes that, we need to do things, we need to have this perfect statesman that won't ever use profanity, doesn't have anything questionable in his past morally, that will understand some of the things on the left and try to have a good tone all the time, and never confront the evil and call things out. you know are you somebody that is this political purist that thinks we need to have someone more that's more like a pastor, more like a perfectly discipled, born again believer in the Oval Office, instead of somebody? Are you thinking that you would rather have someone like that, and only have that over and against somebody that is going to do the right thing politically, but is uncouth and has some moral problems? Well, let me ask you this: where is your line in the sand? Where is your line before you will start to support and stop criticizing those who support someone that is fighting against evil? Where's your line before you will actually start to support us, and support what is right when they're not perfect? Where's your line in the sand? Does it have to get like Nazi Germany? Do people have to be abused on that level, that blatancy, before you will cross over and say, wow, like, I got to say something, I got to do something? I mean, we got to support the better of two evils here. And usually the better of two evils is not even close between how evil one is compared to the other. Where is your line in the sand? Because there's a lot of lines that have been crossed, and a lot of people are waking up. But where is your line in the sand? Because people like David French, people like Russell Moore, people like David Platt, people like, I'm going to call their names out, because these are people that are leading people astray. These are leaders that are leading people astray. Matt Chandler, the list goes on and on and on. These people, John Piper, these people are leading Christians astray, not to be salt and light, not to contend for the faith in this arena, not to make their voice and let their voice be heard and have courage. These are people that are, I believe, they're either cowards because they want to be liked by the media, or they're just deceived and they're believing lies. Where is their line in the sand? I don't know where their line in the sand, but where's yours? Where's your line in the sand? How evil does it have to get from the left before you're like, we got to stop this at all costs? Well, I mean, just about any cost. We got to vote for Trump. If Trump's up for election and he's the only Republican against the Democrat, we got to vote for him, and we've got to apologize for some of the ways that we've pushed back and criticized, because we see what's happening now. We see how bad it's getting. Does the left have to start making laws that they'll take away your children because if you're not teaching them, you're homeschooling them and you're not teaching them radical leftist agendas, LGBTQ, all of these things, if they start making laws like that, will you? Is that your line in the sand? Where? When? How? I say stop criticizing those of us that support Trump. The regular person in the pew. Look at why we're doing it. Look at what we care about. We're responding from a gut response of belief in the word, the principles of the word of God, salt and light, contending for the faith, rescuing those that are being led away to death, abortion. If it wasn't for Trump supporters, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, Roe v. Wade would not be overturned. End of story. Full stop. It took someone like Donald Trump. God used someone like Donald Trump to overturn Roe v. Wade in spite of never Trumpers, in spite of political purists, in spite of this sanctimonious spirit of just having, oh, we just can't lower ourselves to that. We have Roe v. Wade overturned. The greatest injustice in this country has ever seen because of Trump and Trump supporters. And God did that. Yes, God did that. But he did it through those means, in spite of never Trumpers, with no help from never Trumpers, with no help from those that attack those of us that care about these things. I hope that will be an encouragement to those of you that support Trump. Don't give up. Don't listen to these voices on in the Christian realm that are trying to attack you and say you're crazy, you're being unchristlike. No, don't adopt the. Now there's some of us that have adopted too much. Let's go, Brandon. Those kind of things. It's tempting to say those things, but don't adopt that spirit. Don't adopt the side of Trump that is not Christian, that is not right, but adopt the side that is right, to stand up and boldly declare what is right in the political sphere as well. Adopt those things. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Christian, hold your head up high, fight for what you believe in, because you're doing God's work. And if you're someone that's trying to bring us down and take down our, just stop, criticize what we're doing, think about your line in the sand and think about why you believe what you believe. Is it worth it? Is it biblical? Thank you very much. I hope this was a help to you. God bless.